Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today let's take some leftover denim, some leftover 5-inch squares, and a circle and make a placemat and a reversible coaster. This will be a fun project for outside on the picnic table. The circle shape that I am going to use is from June Taylor, and it is their charming circle template. And this is where we get to make this denim quilt with those little peekaboo fabrics. This pattern is designed so that the denim will fray afterwards. Well, I'd like to make a placemat, and the frayed denim would get in the way and have my cup tip over, so I don't want any fraying. So I'm going to applique these pieces down, but the shape is still great for me to use. Now there are two ways we can cut out this circle. We can draw around it and then cut it out with scissors, and we can use rotary blades. But I always recommend using a smaller rotary blade than our normal one. We can use the normal one, but that small blade goes around a surface a lot better. In this ruler, we also have some little lines that we're going to be able to mark. And those can be placement lines and cutting lines. So I'm going to be able to draw those lines right on top of the back of that denim. Now I am using a Crayola washable marker, but you can use something that you will be able to see. I also like to use a rotating mat for this. And you can see where that little blade really goes around that circle. So I now have that perfect circle shape. But of course, you can just trace it and cut it out and then draw those lines. The other thing that we can do with that center template is fussy cut fabric. We're going to need 5-inch squares of fabric. So if there's a picture that we want to fussy cut in that center, we're going to be able to put this wherever we need it, draw those lines, and then when we lift it up, we're going to be able to cut out on those lines. So for my placemat, I do want to have 6 circles. So I will need 6 of my fabric 5-inch squares. So my placemat is going to consist of 6 of these squares. So I'm going to lay them out because sometimes the denim changes and you can be selective. Then I'm going to lay my 5-inch pieces right along those marks that they gave me. These are going to be a lot of fun outside on the picnic table. So I like the way those are going to look, and this is how I'm going to sew them together. Now we can stitch these 5-inch squares onto those circles, but I know I'm going to be washing this, so I'm going to use some good old-fashioned kids glue stick that is washable. And I'm just going to glue my little squares on top of my fabric. Once those are stuck on, we're going to be able to sew these together. We do want to pick these up and match this edge so that round circle is facing up. And I find matching it up right on a flat counter works great because I can see that those seams are going to match up. You can use clips or pins and hold that circle together. Now I can pick this up and I need to stitch one line right along this edge. I'm going to stitch just a couple of threads past that 5-inch square. So it's attaching the 5-inch square onto the circles, but just ever so slightly. So you see, I have just a couple of threads that I stitched on that area. Once those are stitched, that will eventually go down. But we do need to sew all 6 together. So I'm going to match them up and sew the 2 rows first. Once I have those rows stitched together, I'm going to press so that this seam is open. Now that these are nice and flat, we're going to be able to match up that next row. Now we're going to be able to stitch right along that line. And I'm going to stitch once again just ever so slightly on that fabric. Once that row's done, we can open that up and press it. Now we can press those sides. Just press them in just as if we were doing that stitching. We don't need the stitching line, but we do need to give it a good press. So everything is pressed over. It's approximately 10 inches by 15 inches. Now, if this was going to be a quilt and we wanted all of this denim to fray, we would just need to go and stitch a 1/4 inch around each of these circle shapes. Then as it was washed, that 1/4 inch is going to fray. I don't want the fraying for a placemat, so I'm going to applique these shapes down. You could use a blanket stitch or a decorative stitch. So we just need to go around and stitch those circles down. The back so far has no stitching on it, but you will see that stitching as we do that applique. This little curve is going to be a bias curve, so it might want to shift as you are stitching this down. So don't forget, you can always glue it down because it'll just come out in the wash. That's all there is to putting this together. When we look at the back, we can see that stitching. So it looks like it has been quilted. Now those denim seams are still raw seams, so I might end up with a little bit of fraying here and there, but it won't be a lot. It's very flat, so I can put a cup down and not worry about it. So each of these little squares will end up being about 5 inches, so you can judge what size you want by that measurement. This is definitely a fun project, and we get to use up denim and some 5-inch squares. We can make matching coasters, and we can make them reversible. And in that case, we're going to take our 2 pieces of denim and match them right sides. I'm going to glue in my squares on each side. And I do love that this marks it for me. So we're going to be able to peek underneath, just make sure that those squares are lined up the best that we can. Now go and stitch all the way around. So we're going to be stitching through both pieces of denim and both of those fabric squares. Now press back so both of the squares are coming to their right side. I will glue those edges down. It's just going to be easier than trying to get them all to stay flat. And when they're glued down, I'm going to be able to stitch around the one side and it will duplicate itself on the other. And once that edge is stitched down, we have a reversible coaster. Not that we're going to need one outside, but they are cute to have. Having this template so we can cut out that circle exactly is nice. Having the ability to fussy cut in the center is an added bonus. And it gives us directions on how to make a crib size, a twin size, and a full-size quilt. Making these placemats and the coasters are definitely a fun way to start, and then we can make the big quilts. If you're going to do that quilt, it's definitely fun just to do that straight stitching and let it fray. It has that nice, fun look to it. But the placemats look great, work great, and as a bonus, we do have a reversible coaster. Just some fun ways to use up our leftover denim and our 5-inch squares. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I do have a newsletter. It's all under Sew Very Easy. Thanks for joining me today. Bye for now.